one. We are live, Priyanka. We've been waiting for this for a long time.
Hi, Victor. Hi, Paulina.
In case you don't know, we'd like to go ahead and just remind people that are watching. They're going to be watching. Most of the people watch this on their own time. Sometimes they want to watch it from home, or they want to watch it at work, but they don't want to have the volume on. So Metropolitan is always looking to find cool people that are doing fascinating things in Barcelona and help showcase them, whether it's a non-government association, non-profit organization, a women's organization that needs a little bit more visibility. And a lot of these organizations and people have something in common, and that is that they're working on a shoestring budget. And so they need a little bit of extra support to get visibility, especially for companies that might, for example, starting to look for a funding round, because it really helps to get visibility. Or, when you're trying to talk to investors, they want to know who is seeing you, who else can, how are you getting traction, either as a client or as a possibility for other future investors. And one of the areas that I had a very strong interest for a long time had to do with renewables and reusables, waste to energy. And I love that you come to the Metropolitan Business Association meetings and you bring your plastic sheet and you're showing everybody what the one of the products that you develop to reduce single-use plastics. So before we go too far, Priyanka, I was hoping you could introduce yourself, say for 10, 15 seconds, and make sure that people understand your name, or pronounce your name properly, because I don't want to screw that up, your company's name, and how we came to be on this episode together. And also, I didn't let Paulina say anything. Say hi.
Oh, hi, I'm Paulina.
All right. Priyanka, tell us who you are.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Victor, for this opportunity. I am Priyanka Naithani, and I have co-founded a company called Evo Natura, and we are on the mission to end single-use plastic. And we're doing that by reimagining waste into new possibilities. So we're doing exactly what you mentioned, Victor, which is working with renewable sources to develop biodegradable materials that can be integrated into pretty much any plastic product on the market, because plastic's deeply integrated into our world. But we're right now quite niche and specifically targeting our agri-food systems and developing a biodegradable resin that can actually regenerate and renew our soils and provide healthier and nutrient-dense food. So looking at a bit of a circular economy there.
Okay. So how did you get started with this?
Yeah, so my journey started 2 years ago when I started to look at my own plastic consumption and just started to become very hyper aware about how much waste I was producing. And, waste and plastic, especially single-use plastic, becomes something that's like out of sight, out of mind. Everything is wrapped in plastic, from your food to your products. So, I would come home with fresh fruit and vegetables like bananas that would be wrapped in plastic, and then, unwrap that and throw it away, and then realize that it's just like nature has its own packaging, but we've wrapped it. And so became very conscientious of my own waste and started to do a lot of research and realized that on average, every human being leaves about 6 tons of waste on this earth. And we're talking about like a lot of plastic that will stick around for not hundreds of years, but thousands of years. So that kind of legacy is mind-boggling. And so I got interested in this, took a biomimicry course, and biomimicry is essentially learning from nature's innovation, because nature has its own technology. Look at the ocean currents or the ways that plants use like an irrigation system to pull water up their shoots. So there's a lot to learn from nature, got inspired by it, and then just started working with some materials here in my apartment in Barcelona. And without a background really in science, just learned everything from YouTube, developed a prototype made from algae, which you can see I am floating in some algae right now because it is one of Earth's most renewable sources. And yeah, that's kind of my journey today. We're pre-seed, working on research and development at the moment.
So,
Right. Speak up.
you said that we all interact with plastic daily, from like our groceries to the packaging, to like the general lifestyle we see nowadays. So, how has our reliance on plastic shaped the lifestyle we have right now?
Absolutely. I mean, plastic is probably one of our modern times most convenient item. It's revolutionized convenience. It's lightweight, it's durable, it's inexpensive, it's the ideal material for packaging, storage, transportation. I mean, you name it. Where do we not see plastic integrated into our systems? But this convenience has come at a really heavy cost, an environmental burden, in fact. It's created this culture of disposability. Like I said earlier, plastic is a kind of material that's out of sight, out of mind. So it's like you don't even think about it twice when you unwrap that bag of chips and then you discard that plastic. Um, bag into the trash that will like go through several life cycles and end up in some landfill. And one thing that I learned recently that I think is a really staggering statistic is that a study was done last year about our recycling systems. And we discovered that only 9% of plastic has ever been recycled, ever, since 1950s in its production, in mass production after World War II. So we're looking at like only 9% of our waste has ever been recycled into another source. So what happens to that other 91%? We're talking about it ending up in our oceans, in our landfills, and a lot of it is incinerated and creates more fossil fuels. So this is one of our biggest challenges of our time, and I'm really excited to work with other companies in this mission because there's a lot of movement towards tackling single-use plastics.
Sorry, I had muted myself by accident. I have
That's
a story.
okay.
I have a question, Priyanka. When I met you, I was very much associating what you were doing very specifically with microplastics and nanoplastics and how they get into our oceans. But still, staying with the theme that you have here in synthetic polymers playing such an important role in getting from its production to our plate. How is the role that you currently see of like what are the consequences in our agri-food systems and so forth?
Yeah, so that piece of like microplastics is still deeply integrated here because if we look at it from our oceans to our food systems, that material, whatever plastic material that might be, whether it's like your strawberries wrapped in a plastic film, or even like the seedling, if you go like back in the life cycle of that strawberry, the seedling is wrapped in some kind of plastic and that it's like in a plastic pot. That plastic will degrade. Everything degrades. And so it's going to just degrade at a very slow time and create microplastics. So the consequences are dire because a lot of those microplastics end up in our soils, which end up in our food. And I think that everybody has heard this alarming statistic that we eat like a credit card worth of plastic in our food these days. So it's a big, it's an environmental concern, but it's a huge health concern as well.
Okay.
The next question is, I remember always like singing the song in kindergarten. The reuse, reduce, recycle. Is that still a viable option nowadays?
Yeah, that was like the anthem. And that was the mantra of like the environmentalist movement and like a lot of like initiatives, whether in your schools or your towns, that were like, oh, reuse, reduce, recycle. Like the 3 R's was always like ingrained in our psyche. And something that like I've come to notice and like within my research have realized is that that was kind of a mantra that was for shifting the blame onto the average consumer, like you and me. So, making it our responsibility to reuse, reduce, recycle. And, you felt guilt if you didn't participate, or at least I have really felt that, where I'm like trying to separate my waste accordingly when I notice at the end of the day, when the trash truck comes around, it takes everything in one go. And so I think that recycling is still an option. It helps. But like I mentioned, that statistic that came out, only 9% of plastic has ever been recycled. So it's clear that the recycling system is broken and that we need advanced biodegradable materials that can degrade into the earth, that don't leave some kind of residue or microplastic for centuries. So I think that moving away from recycling more into investment and research development towards advanced materials like biodegradable polymers.
Okay. One of the things that I wanted to ask you is regarding sustainable packaging and the role of government on, how do they play and what should they play? Do you have a view on this subject?
Yeah, so in addition to like holding corporations accountable for the amount of like plastic use that they're producing, and also, shifting blame from like the consumer to corporations, I think like government plays a big role in this as well, because like at a national level or international level, policy drives systemic change. And I discovered from like a UN article that over 100 countries worldwide have put some kind of ban or restriction on single-use plastic. So that's a very positive step. Governments are making policies to shift use, to shift people's relationship and experience with plastic. And because of those bans, companies are popping up left and right that are doing some very innovative work around advanced biodegradable materials. So I would say it's kind of like a coupling of corporations taking bold steps towards sustainable packaging and materials, and then governments also creating policies that can match those consumer demands, and create policies that make a shift in the market too.
Okay.
Another question of where do you see the most promising opportunities for innovation in reducing plastic use within the agriculture sector?
I would say that biodegradable materials, I think, are really the future, because we're talking about like a genuine biodegradation, and like a life cycle where this material doesn't last longer than its intended use. So I would say that creating materials that have the same function as like traditional plastic, but can also like compete against the cost of traditional plastic, is kind of like that nexus, that challenge. But I would say that there's a lot of advances in biotechnology, as well as waste management. And I think that just more key funding and research towards biodegradation technology, things that like are not meant to last forever, and that really just serve that one function of like what that would be is like a single-use material. I think that's like where I see innovation, and that's also where we see ourselves heading as Evo Natura. We see ourselves moving towards creating a technology that enables materials that genuinely biodegrade, that don't leave any kind of residue, no microplastic, that you could use for the same function and at the same convenience as traditional plastic without the harmful effects.
Okay.
Another question, as a businesswoman, how addressing the intersection of plastic pollution and agri-food systems?
Oh, sorry, the first half cut out. Do you mind repeating that?
Sure. As a businesswoman, owning a startup. How do you address the intersection of the plastic pollution and agri-food systems?
Yeah, totally. So, like I mentioned, plastic is really integrated into pretty much every sector. But we are really honing in on the niche of working with small sharehold farmers, specifically ones that are using plastic in their fields, because we've noticed that farmers are actually the closest things to like the beginning life cycle of our food. And they're extremely cognizant from the research that I've done and the conversations I've had. They're extremely cognizant of the challenges around um, and the impact of plastic on their soil and their water and their waste streams. So, like looking at targeting those business owners that are so close to the earth, literally at the beginning of the life cycle of our food, and creating materials that work for them. So I've always been super passionate about agri-food systems, and now working closely with farmers to create, mulch films, plant pots, irrigation drips, things that like are commonly integrated into our food system that we don't even think about. But like things that would go in a field in the soil that would actually degrade, that wouldn't create some kind of pollution. And we have a secret sauce that would actually help to regenerate the soil and to create more nutrient dense food. That's like the long term vision here. But we really want to, like, as a company, we're really focusing on food systems and the intersection of advanced and biodegradable materials.
On that subject, one of the things that I've been fascinated because my woman, as we say here in Spain, she grew up in farm. She grew up in Nebraska, and whereas I thought I knew a little bit about farming, wow, I knew nothing. So one of the challenges I've seen is that when people start talking about their, some people are so ignorant about the how much water it takes to grow certain vegetables, and they're very pro vegetable, pro being green and vegan, and are completely ignorant of the water it takes to produce cucumber or lettuce or something that really doesn't generate a whole lot of nutrients in our diet, but takes a lot of water and irrigation. And same thing that I have seen when I've been helping waste energy companies or sustainability companies, and they might touch food. One of the things that surprises me is stuff that I didn't know that had a big impact on my food, and I should have known. It just seems so obvious when I discovered it. But in that realm, what is the biggest challenge to your startup in trying to make a difference?
Great question and great anecdote as well. So we are right now in pre-seed, very early stages, and are focusing on research and development. So I have innovated a material in my DIY lab in my apartment, and in order to really like see its viability and to do further testing, it needs to go and taken into an industrial lab with key partnerships as well. So we're super focused on research and development. We have some partnerships underway, going to be working at a university with a lab to help test the material more and to see what is the viability for scaling. So right now, our focus is on creating a product that fits the market need. We don't want to just create anything to just compete with the several other bioplastic companies out there. We want to create something that genuinely solves an issue in the market. So that's kind of our honing in at the moment.
Okay, and you kind of hit on a question that I had, but who else does this? Who is a competitor or an inspiration for what you do? Somebody who's doing it right, and maybe you can, you said you go in micro niche. Who does this? Who inspires you every day?
Lots of companies, lots and lots. I actually, one company, they're not specifically in like plastics, but they're in sustainable packaging. They're a company called Ecovative, based out of New York in the US. They've been around for a long time and have developed some very very innovative materials, actually honing in on mycelium and mushroom technology. So they've been a huge inspiration for me. And I first, a few years ago when I got into this, I was first looking at, like what are they doing and how to work with them or leverage their knowledge. And now I've seen like a lot of companies that are in the bioplastic space pop up and doing some really good work as well. So I just feel like
Okay.
it's still a nation. Oh, sorry to interrupt you. It's so nascent right now that I feel like more companies need to come into the space.
Okay, so staying with the fact that it's a bit embryonic at the moment.
Yeah.
Are you pre-rev, or do you have
We
revenues already?
We don't. We're pre-seed. We're focusing on developing the material at the moment, but we've done a bunch of customer discovery to see who would be those like key clients or partners in the space, and we're going to be focusing on a B2B business model.
You started to address a question that Pauline and I were discussing. Who is your ideal client? That was your question. So you started to touch it. Who do you think would be your next ideal client?
Yeah, so working with small sharehold farmers would be that ideal client. But obviously, one thing that I'm still working on is like honing in on that exact target audience. And I think that this is something that like a lot of pre-seed companies might be able to relate to. Because when you're early, you're not entirely sure of what's ahead for you. And so I would say like we're definitely going to focus in on the agri-food space, working with farmers and their businesses. And then like to go deeper there, like the specifics of that, we're not there quite yet. But we're still developing like that niche ideal client.
How much capital are you raising as of now?
Capital wise, so we all the investment for the research has gone bootstrapped by myself and my co-founder. So we are part of an accelerator program in Rhode Island in the US, where I'm from. And it's a small program that's providing some business mentorship. We haven't raised capital yet because we're focusing on the R&D. But this is actually something that I'd love to expand more of my knowledge on, is like what are the stages. Sometimes I hear that it's never too early to raise capital, like at an ideation or a prototype stage. So I'm getting a bit of mentorship and support on that. But I feel like we're right at the cusp of asking for that investment.
Well, I've raised capital for local tech startups for the last 15, 18 years here in Barcelona. And I think the answer is never too early to start the process because it envelops you, it just grabs you. And then a lot of times the CEOs or the senior management will spend the rest of their time trying to raise capital instead of growing their company.
Yeah.
And so you definitely would like to spend as little time as possible on the capital raising side. But I do have some questions, and sorry for being nosy. Is your organization, is it based in the US or is it based here?
It's US based.
It's US based. Okay, so that's going to be much easier to raise capital for US investors. Excellent. And when you're still trying to figure out how much capital you might need, even for R&D, do you have an idea of where's a good place to look for angel investors or early stage VCs or financial sponsors?
Yeah, great question. I think that this is something that a lot of like companies in my stage are looking out for. So from my research, I think that looking at a few accelerator programs that are like for early stage companies are a good investment point because they'll take you through mentorship plus some kind of round of funding with equity, of course. But another option is grant funding. Federal funding from the US is quite readily available. And then I have found a few angel investor groups. There's actually one in Barcelona that's really great. And so I think there's a lot of possibility for angel investing as well.
And when you approach them, have you figured out kind of where you fit in terms of verticals? Are you an impact? Are you food tech? Are you reusable, renewable? Because I can see how you may be in a couple different buckets.
Yeah, I think we intersect in a few spaces between food tech, climate tech, definitely renewables. So no, we haven't defined that for ourselves yet. I think our next stage and our goal is to actually step into those accelerator angel investing mentorship programs. So it's really like at that ideation slash like early research and development stage before we're about to be enveloped in that, as you say, which I agree, you're never too early to.
Well, once we get off this video interview, I'd like to follow up with you because I did spend some time talking to angel investors and early stage VCs that were focused in the Nebraska area. And because it's so agricultural based, there's so many really cool things going on. And I did develop a small network of potential investors that were doing things in this space. And clearly, it's easy to get involved and get visibility and get people excited about small contributions that can have huge impacts. And this is kind of where I'm thinking that you might be able to inspire people. But I did have some experience in that. Do you have any other questions that you have?
Sure. I think our most favorite question that me and Victor love is, how can Metropolitan help you?
Yeah, I also love that question. I mean, Victor answered a bit of that when he just offered a bit of support right now. I think Metropolitan is a really great platform for amplifying a lot of voices, especially as like a young woman of color entrepreneur. I really feel like it's a really amazing opportunity to be able to share my story, but also kind of follow the progress of this project and this company to really inspire other women to have a seat at the table as well. So I think Metropolitan can support by continuing to amplify voices like myself with other women entrepreneurs. And then I know you have a huge network of individuals internationally and also nationally that are just integrated into your space. And I think that it's always helpful to just spread the word as much as possible, because the more people talk about it, the more awareness there is too, because we're talking about a genuine social issue as well. So it's not just about like the company, it's something so much larger that impacts every single one of us. So the more we talk about it, the more, the closer we are to solving this problem.
I was talking about you in Valencia this past weekend. I went to go celebrate a transaction for a friend of mine, and she really wanted to go and see the rice fields in the Delta, and she didn't understand the importance of wheat and what it looked like, and she knows what it is, but we started talking. I asked her if she knew who Norman Borlaug is. Do you know who Norman Borlaug is?
I do. I spent numerous summers at the World Food Prize, and I'm so integrated into Iowa. I'm super into ag. And so Norman he's the founder of the Green Revolution. He was actually my idol growing up.
Oh, I never knew that he was categorized as such, as a Green Revolution guy.
Yes, he was the one that really transformed ag internationally, actually. And reduced hunger and has just been so instrumental in the food system. So yeah, I'm super familiar with Norman and the World Food Prize and Borlaug, everything that's happening in the Midwest, I'm really tapped into.
Well, hopefully you can do something like come up with the dwarf wheat like Norman Borlaug. We didn't really, he knew that it was going to be helpful in generating a higher production crop, but not knowing that this little, I guess, invention or what do you call it? Food engineering would then lead to saving the lives of over 1 billion people by feeding India with a dwarf wheat. And little teeny things like this, you don't understand the ramifications and the butterfly effects that it can have around the world. All he wanted to do is improve, production for the food crop. and then all of a sudden this entire country could feed itself much better. So anyhow, anything else that you would like to share?
Just my gratitude. Thank you for having me. It was such a fantastic discussion. And yeah, I look forward to more discussions like this. And thank you, Metropolitan. Thank you, Victor, Polina, and all the great work that you're doing with bringing so many like-minded people together.
It's very sweet of you. I look forward to seeing you on, is it the 25th? Are you going to participate in this, yes. I don't know if it's a competition, but certainly this investment forum?
Yes, I'm going to be pitching at, I believe it's The Cover, which is a co-working space in Barcelona. I'll be pitching in front of a group of investors and other stakeholders about this project. So please do stop by if you're available on the 25th at 7 o'clock, I believe.
Say a free shout out, free plug. For those who don't know, it's Sir Victor Hotel on the 25th at 7 o'clock. And we're going to have impact entrepreneurs pitching their companies, and I would love to see you there. I'm definitely going to be there.
Fantastic. Thank you, Victor. Thank you, Polina.
Without anything else, I will see you soon. Actually, can you stay online even though we hang up?
Yes.
I'm going to end it now. So thank you so much, and look forward to seeing you soon.
You too. Thank you.